this whole Brooklyn Nets drama. I know I talked about it through the week. And I know that it's kind of been an issue, especially with the Kevin Durant interview with Chris Haynes of TNT and Bleacher Report. So I know that that's kind of caused a bit of an issue. And so to the people that don't know, he kind of went on to talk about the reason why he requested a trade at the beginning. Talked about, wanting more practice, wanting more shell drill. I think that he's the first player in NBA history that wants more practice defensive drills. I don't think I've ever I don't even think a high school player would want to do those stuff. But he just, that's kind of his prerogative. He likes that. Steve Nash was probably saying no to that. And, he kind of is on the side of Jacque Vaughn. And then of course he talks about his teammates here. And he says this quote, "Looking at our starting lineup, Edmund Sumner, Royce O'Neal, Joe Harris, Nick Claxton, to me, it's not disrespect, but what are you expecting from that group?" Durant said, "You expect us to win because I'm out there. So if you're watching from that lens, you're expecting us to play well because number 7 is out there." And then he obviously goes on to talk about how he feels like he's having a great time out there on the court, feels like he's enjoying the moment. And he kind of says that as part of when I tore my Achilles in the pandemic, I don't know if we were going to play again. I don't know if I was going to play again. And, he kind of continues on talking more stuff about, just being a player and just enjoying the moment and other things like that, which I think that last quote that I read, I don't necessarily have a problem with it, with, kind of that mentality of like, oh, you never know if you're going to play again. Like, I get that. But it's the other two things where it was just kind of disappointing to see Kevin Durant seem to be hypocritical to himself. Like, it seems like there's just, I don't know. You guys talk. I've already did my piece earlier in the week. Anyone wants to take the mic, because I was just disappointed.
Dude, this dude is the most annoying. I don't know, man. There's not many guys that rub me the wrong way as much as Kevin Durant does, right? Because it is always deflecting blame to everybody but himself. Everybody but himself. Because, I actually kind of, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about the quote where he lists Edmund Sumner and, Nick Claxton, these dudes on his team. He leaves Ben Simmons out on purpose, right? Like you only have this roster because of the trades that you made your team make. You only have these dudes because of that. You would have Jared Allen. You would have these other guys that are out there. If you hadn't done that, you'd have Karis LeVert, whoever you want to come back to, you'd have those guys still.
Didn't we?
You made those choices to do that. And that, the one that even that is what it is, whatever. GM KD, he doesn't want to, ever take responsibility for forcing those trades when he did, like the James Harden one in particular. The coaching one is the one that was blowing my mind. Absolutely astounding to me that he could send even more shots at Steve Nash, which that's 100% what it was. Sending shots at Steve Nash after he's already been fired. We're not doing enough defensive drills. But here's the problem. You chose Steve Nash, one. You also knew that Steve Nash was coming from the Mike D'Antoni system, right? That's literally brought Mike D'Antoni in as his head assistant coach that first season, right? You knew that was what they were going to do. That is what Mike D'Antoni has always done as a coach. He never was a defensive guy. Steve Nash was essentially doing a pretty poor imitation of Mike D'Antoni. What did you expect? You chose a dude who'd never coached a professional NBA team in his whole life and was coming from a non-defensive system for his whole career. I mean, he literally played for Rick Carlisle, Mike D'Antoni, and what's his name? Don Nelson, right? I just don't even understand how void of reality you can be, and just blaming all these other people for stuff. What are you talking about? It's not even like you're that great. You haven't been as good on defense since you came from Golden State. And I get that the injury definitely took away from that, right? And KD's never been top tier defender, but he's been solid at times, right? Especially in that Warriors run. He was really solid for them on defense. Yeah. But I mean, what do you expect, man? That's all I have to say. What do you expect? You made these choices. You put this team together. You picked these coaches.
I mean, it honestly sounded like a passive-aggressive way of asking for a trade, to be honest, because
that's it. Right?
Yeah.
It's the only explanation.
Exactly, because why are you naming out your teammates like that? Why are you sending more shots at Steve Nash, somebody that the organization was backing, and you made your public trade request and they pretty much stomped it out because they were backing Steve Nash. So it just looks like, I think personally, KD wants off the team, and he took this article as a chance to voice that, but also to come around and speak about his legacy, because he always, KD is on Twitter heavy, and people are always talking about his legacy and talking about, KD, you were a snake, you left, you don't have a legacy because you joined the Warriors, you joined the team that beat you. So he took this opportunity to say, well, my legacy is whatever I teach Cam Thomas. My legacy is whatever I taught Andre Roberson. And it's just like, no, like nobody thinks your legacy is what you taught Cam Thomas, man. Like,
also, let's stand really tall on those guys.
Exactly.
Great
like
work.
you know what you did, KD, but he's kind of just at the point probably where it's like he knows he can't win and he can't say anything to make people feel like he actually has his own legacy. Mm-hmm. So it's like he's just gonna say, okay, it's whatever I teach these guys. I do respect him talking about, basketball could be taken from you at a moment's notice, and I'm enjoying just playing the game. But I mean, really, what other option do you have? Your president, your GM, your owner all vetoed your trade, and you're kind of just stuck. You don't want to go out there and say you're unhappy. So it is what it is with KD at this point. I think he still ends up getting traded because I don't think Kyrie fixes this team's issues.
Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. Like that, because at the end of the day, their glaring issue is and will be defense for the rest of the season. They literally have no way to fix that problem. And Kyrie is a tragic defender. Like it ain't getting better with Kyrie out on the court. You might be able to outscore some bad teams, probably, sure, but you're still at best 6 seed at best. 6 seed with this squad. Like, because we saw that one game from Ben after they called him out, right? And he actually kind of looked like the Ben that they were hoping to get. Like he looked pretty solid. I don't remember which game that was, who they were playing, but he would.
Yeah, they were playing the Trailblazers.
He was really solid in that game, but it's one game in the last 2.5 years we've seen this dude play well, right? So that doesn't change anything. I still don't think Ben is going to give you good defense if you go against anybody that is remotely his size at this point. Like anybody that doesn't have confidence that his physicality is just going to overwhelm, he can't guard them. Like go look at the game they played against the Mavs, what Luka was doing to Ben Simmons. That isn't getting better overnight. It's not. Yeah. And he's supposed to be your best defender. So yeah, they're in an awful spot. And two, we were saying he's sending shots at Steve Nash, but he's clearly sending shots at Sean Marks too. That's not even veiled. Like this is your actual GM still, and you're still sending shots at, like, look at how bad this roster is, which, like I said, you're partially responsible for, KD, but and it's certainly a shot at Sean Marks too.
Yeah, I mean, they really should have, like, looking back at it, I know that DeAndre Jordan was, a friend of Kevin Durant, but man, you gotta just keep Jared Allen, man. Like he's balling out
bad.
Right now.
That was really bad.
And it was that's already weakened to Bernie's status, DeAndre Jordan. No offense to you, Bernie, but you know what I mean. Like he was a shell of his Clippers self, DeAndre Jordan, and they forced it.
He's peaked. I mean, he didn't work in Lakers. He didn't work in Brooklyn. He hasn't worked since he left the Clippers. Maybe he had a couple of stints here and there that weren't too bad, but yeah, I mean, he's at the age right now where it's just like, it's time to just be the backup, kind of play that role, that Dwight Howard role, I would say. Maybe not the one in Taiwan, but this one.
Oh my gosh,
he's balling out. But yeah, I think like at the end of the day, the Brooklyn Nets. Again, it just comes back to the decisions that both Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant made at the beginning, talking about how they didn't need a coach and how they felt like they are the coaches and they feel like they're running the whole show, and the Nets have let them run the whole show. But I think that there's only really one player that could really run the show, and that's LeBron James in terms of being a GM and things like that. Like I think that's the only player, in my opinion, that could do it. But I kind of want to move on to the next part of this story, and that's, of course, the players holding a players only meeting to discuss Ben Simmons' performance. Obviously, like they played terrible. I believe this was the I think this was the Kings game where they just like absolutely just gave up everything
Yep.
in the kitchen
Sacramento.
sink. And this is
Mhm.
what Ben Simmons had to say. He discussed that he acknowledged the criticism that knows is coming his way. He goes on to say, "You obviously are not going to be happy when anybody's out, but for me, I've been dealing with the knee since the start of the season. It's been swollen. I had PRP injections. I had blood drained a couple times, so it's not a made up thing. It's a real thing. I get the skepticism, but I think one thing with me is that I'm a competitor. I want to play. I want to win. So I'm going to go and do what I can to get out there. And I just think, man, I think he's just capping. If we're going with our cap and no cap segment, this is a total cap.
He's absolutely capping.
Yeah, it's just disappointing because, like I said, I was a big Ben guy. When he came out of the draft, I saw the stats, I saw the movement, and you could clearly see that he can be a top 20, even top 15 player if he wanted to be, but it seems to me that he gets in his way sometimes. And I think whether it is the mentality of Ben Simmons of not like really having that maybe killer instinct is not the right word, it's a cliche, and obviously the whole old media uses it, but it's definitely one of those things where it's just like I want to see Ben Simmons out there like wanting to be the guy, like wanting, maybe not offensively, but at least defensively. But it just doesn't seem like that to me.
No, he mentally, it's not there anymore for Ben. Like Bernie, we had our debates about Ben for a long time, and I told you, like, to me, the biggest thing with Ben, you have to put him in a position mentally to succeed. The problem is that now I just like, there's no putting that that rabbit back in the hat, so to speak. Like you can't do it. Like I think one of the things too is like the JJ Redick podcast that he was on. I thought that was illuminating for like the accountability factor of Ben Simmons. You know what I mean? Like seeing how little he was pushed even in that interview by JJ. It's like what
Yeah. He was just propping up his
about?
friend. It was terrible. I couldn't even make it through that interview.
Couldn't finish it.
Yeah.
I couldn't finish it. But that has to be what it was like behind closed doors too. It has to be. The worst part for Ben is that it's like a boy who cried wolf type situation. Like, even if he is hurt now, nobody's going to believe you.
Yeah. Can we even believe him? Like, yeah.
No, nobody will believe you.
He hasn't even shown, like, it's funny that he says he's a competitor, but he hasn't shown in his entire career in the league any, like, early Ben was, but he hasn't shown any improvement in his game. So how can you say you're a competitor when your game hasn't even changed a smidgen? Like, it hasn't changed at all. He does he's gotten worse. He's gotten way worse. And, we all saw that viral clip of him airballing a layup. We all saw the one of him shooting at the Brooklyn Bridge, and he's airballing shots. And he addressed that on the podcast with JJ Redick. But it's like, this is what people are talking about. You haven't gotten better. It looks like he just, enjoys playing Warzone. He enjoys talking to IG models, and he doesn't really have a love for the game. And he's kind of just content with being a millionaire.
He's a Warzone competitor. That's what it is.
Yeah, he's a Warzone competitor.
He's part of FaZe Clan now with Bronny. Like, that's kind of the thing with Ben. I mean, if we look at the stats, I have it pulled up here: 6.6 points per game. I believe last week he was averaging 5.8 before he kind of had that decent game in Portland. 2-point percentage is pretty okay, but I mean, he's a guy that I know can shoot above 55%, close to 60%, 2-point shots, and he just, I don't know, like we look at the stats beforehand, like he's averaging 56, 58. But now he's at like 53. Like, he's just not the guy that we thought he was going to be. And that's just the disappointment in, what's been going on with Ben Simmons as a player. It's like, I think he could have been an all-time great, or maybe not all-time great, but he definitely could have been up there as like one of the best point guards that we've seen in a while. Like,
of his generation, sure.
Yeah.
He had all the talent on paper to do that, for sure.
But man, like, you compare him and then you see a guy like Luka Doncic, not to compare to apples and oranges, but you see him just play the point guard position at his size, moving the ball with his eyes, shifting the defense so he can make that different pass that the defense doesn't expect. I mean, That is what I thought Ben Simmons could potentially do. I mean, I feel like he should do a lot of more pinch the post action and see if he can't just like go from the post and like create opportunities. I mean, you see guys like Jokic do it. You see guys like Doncic do it. But maybe Ben Simmons is only, and I think Jared Dudley kind of nailed it on the head. It seems like he's only a transition type of player. He's only good in the full court transition offense. Like half court is just you're praying that he just does not get in your way. Is basically what's going on, and maybe that's a little harsh to say, but
it's totally right. It's totally right. You could see how terrible. I mean, you can literally see all over his face how terrified he is to get the ball in any situation where he might get fouled. You can actually see it. I promise you, watch his face. He literally looks like, a kid who just started his first day at a new school. Like, he looks terrified. And I mean, that's like, in a lot of ways, I think that's a tragedy of basketball, of the social media era of basketball. And I think, like, without getting too deep into it, I think we're going to see other Ben Simmons in the future. And I think we've seen some guys that have had very similar situations. Not as like in the public focus as Ben Simmons, of course, but there's going to be another Ben Simmons in the future. And a lot of it comes down to these mega high expectations that these kids get put on them when they're 15, 16. Mm-hmm. And then it also is, you live on social media. Like, to me, one of the biggest conundrums with a guy like Ben Simmons is like, dude, you clearly have the mentality or not the mentality to be on social media and be a high-level basketball player, but he is someone who lives on social media.
Yeah,
he's streaming. He's in FaZe Clan. He's talking to IG models, like all these things we're saying. But you have to understand how to put yourself in the best situation possible for your own self. But also, you need to put people around you that are going to tell you the hard things that you need to hear to put you in the position to succeed as well. And he clearly hasn't done that. Clearly. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know who. The hardest part is there's almost no one you could even blame because we don't know who it is behind closed doors. The unfortunate part for him is that he's just going to end up taking all the blame. But like you see, it's been well documented how things in Philly ended with Doc and Joel Embiid calling him out. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Should they have done it that way? No. But if they had done something like that sooner in a less big situation, who knows what would have been different? They just waited until the worst time possible to hold this dude accountable, right? Yeah. So in a lot of ways, it's the fault of just, I think, a new era of basketball and us not necessarily understanding what it means to play basketball professionally in the social media era. Because I think LeBron is in a lot of ways a great example, but he's also a super poor example because there's so many people who can't do what LeBron has done his whole life. Yeah. Like, there's people who are just not built for that life of constantly being in the right position and saying the right things and doing the right things. Whatever you think of LeBron, he's made hardly any missteps in his career. It's a hard example to follow. So I don't know, man. I feel really bad for Ben, and I would go so far as to say this dude is the worst contract in the NBA. Like, I don't even think it's questionable at this point. Wow. Like, do you guys think it's even comparable to anybody? I saw a poll the other day that was ranking whether or not his contract was the worst or Russell Westbrook, and I just kept thinking, like, you have to be insane to think Westbrook's contract is worse than Ben's right now. At least Russ is expiring. He's going away. So, and for whatever you think about Russell Westbrook, I'm sorry to tell you he's better than Ben Simmons is right now, which doesn't say much for either of them, but he's better.
Yeah, Russ has actually been playing good, like off the bench.
He's been solid.
Yeah. I heard his trade value is actually going up. Right now, Ben has no trade value. I can't imagine a team trying to trade for Ben.
Nobody.
Is that some the LeBron propaganda, Brad?
It is. Get him off my team, please.
Yeah.
I honestly think you're right, though, Brad. I really do. I think Westbrook's is going up a little bit because these bad teams see him and say, hey, we could have an exciting somebody in the building for 6 months. Yeah. There's nobody who could convince themselves to take Ben. Like, honestly, I feel bad for him because I'm not even sure he could even get another contract in the NBA at this point. I really
agree.
don't.
Yeah, I don't think
he can get an okay contract. I mean, if my frustration too is like, look at the stats, man. Everything is going down. Minutes per game. hit field goal attempts. Like
That's the problem, Bernie. Do you think he has the mentality to take a lesser contract? Because honestly, if he did, I would say that would be the version of Ben that would help him the most. But he's never shown that he has the wherewithal to understand, maybe to lessen his pride a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, depending on what the whole situation is, I mean, maybe he's a guy that just decides, you know what, I'm a video game player. That's what I want to do.
Larry Sanders type. Is that his name? The guy that
Yeah.
left Milwaukee back in the
Yeah.
day?
Yeah, but I mean, like I just think there's been a lot of. I feel like he's been escaping a lot of things, man. I feel like I know we talk about him not been playing, but and again, I don't want I feel like we're kind of sugarcoating the Ben Simmons. Maybe not us per se, but I feel like the media is sugarcoating.
Yeah.
Ben Simmons and like he's okay, like he'll get back to it, like everything will be fine. Like I said, I always love to bring up the Skip Bayless point of like him just bringing up that either 42 or 50 point game in Utah. Like he's not that guy anymore. He will never he's never consistent to be like that. Like that's just not his game. I think this is who Ben Simmons is now, and I feel like at this point either something happened in his life that kind of got him to where he's at, but like I feel like basketball he doesn't care about anymore. It kind of reminds me of like Darren Williams a little bit when he got that big contract. He does, kind of lost interest in the game, and obviously the skills deteriorate and things like that. But I've never seen a peak before at the age of 24 for an NBA player of like his magnitude and of his kind of caliber that we thought he could have been.
I mean, it's I say this all the time, but it honestly makes me more sad than anything else because all the jokes you want to make about Ben, anybody, I've made my fair share of jokes at Ben Simmons' expense, but like this is a dude that legitimately looks like a broken person as far as this profession is concerned, and I can't relate to any of these dudes athletically, professionally, being anywhere near that level of competitor, but I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to know that, like, if that competitive edge goes away, if your mentality is just not there and your belief in yourself isn't there, it's an impossible task to get out there with the best athletes in the world. It's an impossible task. You can't do it. You have to believe in yourself. He doesn't do it. He just doesn't. So I really hope and pray for this dude that he can turn it around, but no, man. I just hope he puts himself in a situation in his personal life that he can get some help and, figure out what's going on in his life.
Yeah.
I would say like an avenue to him getting better would be to blow up the Nets, because then you can start with him as being your centerpiece. You don't want him as the centerpiece, but you can at least build him up mentally like that, kind of say, okay, we traded away KD and Kyrie. There's no expectations here to win a championship, because that's really probably what's also messing with him is the expectations. They traded James Harden for him, and James Harden looks amazing this year. So if there was no pressure, he might start to come back just a little bit. Then you could build from there.
Yeah. I mean, he literally went from one of the highest pressure places to play to even higher pressure place to play. Like there was not a drop off even in the slightest. Then even then, the Nets are just as at fault a lot for all this stuff as even Philly was in the first place. Because I mean, you introduce this dude who's already in a chaotic personal situation into the most chaotic professional situation in the last 10 or 15 years. So no favors were done to Ben, but he didn't do himself any favors either.
Yeah. Exactly. So let us know in the comment section down below, people. What do you guys think of this whole Brooklyn Nets drama, this whole mess? I know that it is, stemming from Kevin Durant's interview with Bleacher Report, also stemming from this players only meeting that they had about Ben Simmons' performance and what to do with him in terms of like whether to boost his confidence, to call him out more. But again, let us know in the comment section down below. Please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. If you're new to the channel, again, all that stuff helps out the channel tremendously and helps us grow to become something special. And we hope that you guys continue to share the stuff with other people as well.